Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Last week, Nadir Shah had left Zakharia Khan in shock when he had predicted that the Singhs would soon take over Zakharia Khan's rule. In anger, Zakharia Khan again got his leaders together and gave the command of Sir par hove jiske case rehn na deno apne des. Anyone who has case on their head, the nishani of a Sikh, we will not let them live here with us. And this period of our itihas is very difficult to explain and to imagine. Today we're going to hear of two Gursikhs who gave the ultimate sacrifice to show that Sikhi was not finished. They couldn't hear people say that Sikhi was finished. They couldn't hear or bear to hear the Nindya of the Guru Khalsa. And even during these worst of times, a time when it had been 4 months and no Sikh can be seen in Punjab. Just imagine that, Sangat Ji, going to Punjab and not seeing a single dastar, a single Sikh in our homeland. Not being able to do darshan of the Gurdwara Sahibs. And during these times, each part of the Dharti was an enemy for the Singhs. They couldn't travel without being spotted and reported to the authorities. Many people started to say that the Mughals had defeated the Singhs. No one is left to stand up to the Mughals. The Khalsa has been totally killed off. And the truth was that most of the Singhs had relocated or became Shaheed. However, there were some who remained in the area of Amritsar Sahib, Taran Sahib, living in jungles or places of hiding. Gursikhs such as Bhai Bota Singh Ji and Bhai Garja Singh Ji. One day they decided to do darshan of Taran Sahib. And look how much pyar they had to do darshan of the Gurdwara, fully knowing the terrible, dangerous situation that they were in. With the cover of night and darkness, they did darshan and then ishnan at the asthan before leaving. As the sun rose, however, the Singhs had to stop in their tracks and remain hidden in the jungles. Eventually, two travellers passing by noticed the Singhs and they were shocked and started discussing between themselves. One of them said, "Look, there's a couple of Singhs, Mughla to darde hoye luk ke baithe ne." The other replied saying that you must be mistaken. It's common knowledge that Zakharia Khan has finished all the Singhs, and Singhs have been gone for months now. And besides, Khalso so jo nit jang kara, Khalso so na maran te dara, Khalso so jo danga machava, Khalsa so jo sees lagava. Singhs wouldn't be hiding. Singhs are the bravest of the brave. Oh ta hamesha qurbani den lai tayar rehnde ne. Sangat Ji, when Bhai Bota Singh Ji heard these words that these people that look like Singhs, they must be cowards. It was like he had been stung by a scorpion. The Singhs said that we are not going home now. Singha wale karname karke apa jana aj. Sada dharm hai. They decided to show the strength of the Khalsa to the whole world. How could the Khalsa started by Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji Maharaj be wiped out? This is Nindya of our Guru. Now is the time for our Shahidi. How many more days can we continue hiding? Bhai Bota Singh Ji and Bhai Garja Singh Ji prepared to complete such a display of bravery that would be remembered for the rest of time. They thought that now is the time to show that the Fauj are in Chardi Kala. Thinking this, both Gursikhs immediately came out from the jungles and travelled to a place called Noordin Disra near Lahore, where they set up their own toll road. They took over control of the land and started charging tax. How brave were our ancestors in a time where everyone thought Sikhi was finished. These two Singhs set up their own Raj. They started charging tax to anyone who went by. They purposely chose this road, the main road towards Zakharia Khan, based in Lahore. So anyone who passed by was charged tax. The Singhs would say, "This is our Raj, you are passing by our land, you must pay the tax accordingly." And the population were actually happy giving money to the Singhs rather than the corrupt Mughal regime. In fact, 3 days passed in peace and with everyone taking permission from the two Singhs just to pass. No one questioned the Singhs. They obeyed the Singhs' command and paid the designated amount to the Panth. Since there had been no response from Zakharia Khan, the Singhs decided to write a letter. Their mission was not to take from the population. It was to show Zakharia Khan that no matter what he does, Sikhi will never be finished. The Khalsa will never stop fighting against them and his injustice. This famous letter was given to a messenger passing by who was travelling towards Lahore. The Singhs told him not to go anywhere else, not to stop anywhere else. Go as quickly as possible and have it read out in Zakharia Khan's court. This famous letter goes as follows. मैं हाँ सिंह बोता, हाथ विच सोटा मोटा, लवां जगात खलोता, आना गड्ढा पैसा खोता। तैथों राज नहीं होता, तू जावेगा दरगाह रोता, तू आखी भाभी खानो नो, तेरा देवर हैगा सिंह बोता। The letter introduced himself first by saying that I'm Bhai Bota Singh, standing here with just a long stick. We are charging tax. The bigger the transport, the bigger the tax. You, Zakharia Khan, are useless at leading. You can't do Raj properly. You will die and go into God's court crying. Then they said to pass this message on to Zakharia Khan's sister, referred to as Bhabi Khano. So basically this letter was written in such a way that it would get the attention of Zakharia Khan straight away. The Singhs wrote the letter in such a way that Zakharia would burn in anger and immediately send his forces to attack the Singhs. And that's exactly what the Singhs wanted. He shouted out in his court, Kahaneea Singh, jiondeh fad ke leke aao, bring them back alive to me. So, consisting of 100 horseback soldiers led by Faujdar Jalal Din, the Mughal commander, the forces approached the checkpoint and spotted the two Singhs. And in our Itihas, they are beautifully described as being great Gursikhs, tall, with only the stars tied and wearing long kasheri up to their knees. Their body was naked apart from their gatra and kamarkasa. One Singh armed with a talwar and a wooden sota. The other Singh had a spear and a dagger. Between them, they were very ill-equipped to fight a heavily armed forces of Zakharia Khan. The Singhs left the checkpoint and stood on the road now. As the forces approached, Bhai Bota Singh ji ne kiha ki shikar aa gaya Khalsa da. This was the Bodbale, the Gupta language of the Singhs. Our prey has arrived and our hunt is about to begin. They shouted out, where are you going? You are on our land, you owe us tax if you want to pass. Mosul par ke jao. The commander of the army was shocked. He replied from a distance away. There was no way he was going to risk getting too close to these Singhs. He said, Bota Singh, why fight and die today? Come with me and I will arrange a meeting with the governor of Lahore. You will be spared and released. The Singhs replied saying, when did we ever want to save our lives? We want to battle. Asida jang karna, stop with your talk and fight us so we can show you that the Singhs are alive and well. Why are you worried? What harm can we do with these sticks? The commander tried again. Bota Singh, why bother with all this? There is no need. We will have Khan Bahadur speak with you in his court. And the Singhs again replied, this is our Raj, our land. There is no talk left between us. We're not here to negotiate. We will let our shastras, our weapon, do the talking. Then Bhai Bota Singh ji and Bhai Garja Singh fell upon the Mughals like lions attacking a herd of sheep. They sprinted towards the army and began to swing their weapons. The Mughals, consisting of 100 horsemen, immediately retreated away. And seeing this, the Singhs picked up stones and rocks and started to throw them at the soldiers. Jalal Din sent groups of men to attack. And seeing both Singhs wipe out a number of the enemy with ease, they decided to fire arrows and bullets from far away. The Singhs were suffering many injuries as the arrows hit their body. तीर लगे सिंह पट सिटावे तुर्कन को सो अखी दिखावे सिंह कहे त्रिग तुमरे तीर हमरो चीर न सके शरीर. Kaviji describes the scene. He says that when the arrows would pierce the bodies of the Singhs, Bhai Bota Singh ji and Bhai Garja Singh would pull the arrows out and throw it aside with disgust, making sure the Mughals could clearly see him. They would tear out the arrow and yell, your arrows are useless. They cannot pierce our bodies. De pavitra hoy shastra lagaye. The Singhs believed that the bullets and arrows hitting their bodies were actually making the body, the sarir, more pavitra, more blessed. They said that you're lucky that we don't have the bow and arrow. If we had the bow and arrow, asi dikhawenge si, we would show you how we would kill multiple Mughals with one tir. The Mughals then decided to run the Singhs down with their horses. They made a charge and ran over the Singhs only to see the Singhs rise up again. What were these Singhs made up of? The Mughal Fauj were publicly being mocked by just two Singhs. They had anger as their fellow soldiers were being wiped out one by one, and their attacks seemed to have no effect on the Singhs. As weapons struck their bodies, Bhai Bota Singh ji and Bhai Garja Singh ji showed no attention to the pain. Their bodies had become hardened because of the time in the jungles, and their skin was as strong as a shield. Only when a blow would fall and break the bone would they feel fatigue. The Mughals now drew their swords and attacked. The Singhs stopped the swords with the staffs and stood back to back, facing the enemy, protecting each other. The Mughals were forced to abandon their ghori and advance on foot. They decided that they have to go to their last resort now that all their other attempts were futile. And what they did, Sangaji, they drew their guns. And all of them at once, they fired and made it rain of bullets onto the two Atarati Surmi. And wherever the bullets would hit the Singhs, they would smash the bones of Bhai Bota Singh and Bhai Garja Singh. The Mughals fired at the Singhs' hands and broke their right hands holding the weapons. But then the Singhs they picked their weapons back up with their left hand. Then the Mughals managed to break the Singhs' hips and then the legs, causing Bhai Bota Singh and Bhai Garja Singh to fall onto the ground. Eventually, the Mughals shouted out and told the Singhs to beg for forgiveness. These two Guru Ke Pyare were now lying on the floor and they were told to convert to Islam, and then we will spare you. But Sangaji, when these words fell into ears of Bhai Bota Singh and Bhai Garja Singh, even with their body damaged to such an extent, they were crippled. But inna josh, inna beras, so much shakti, they held each other up again, leaning back to back. And then they stood up with their shastras in their left hands, and they still continued to challenge the Mughal Fauj. The Mughals were so confused and shocked. There stood two utterly smashed bodies standing on one leg each. What were they thinking? The Mughals again approached, and the commander ordered them not to fire. They only have one leg and one hand each. Tackle them down and subdue them. And as the Mughals came near, the Singhs still used their shastra and smashed the enemy's heads. Streams of blood poured from the Mughal's head, and the Singhs eventually and finally fell to the ground exhausted. Having hundreds of cuts on their body, now Bhai Bota Singh, Bhai Garja Singh, both Guru Ke Pyare, Purja Purja Ghat Mara, Kabahu Na Chhadya Khet, they breathed their last, fighting the enemy, but never for a second did they turn away from the Mughal Fauj. As the Fauj confirmed that the two Singhs were finally killed, they took their anger out on the Singhs, and what they did was they cut the body into tiny parts. They had failed to bring back two Singhs alive to Zakharia Khan. Instead, they had to now report back how they completely failed this mission, and not only that, they lost so many of their own. News of the bravery of Bhai Bota Singh and Bhai Garja Singh spread across Punjab like wildfire. The people started to say that the Khalsa had not been finished off after all. Who could finish warriors like this? The bravery of Bhai Bota Singh and Bhai Garja Singh shocked everyone, Sangatji. News started to spread to the Khalsa Singhs in hiding, who would all recite Tan hai, remembering these great shaheeds. Bhai Bota Singh and his tax collection was a reminder that Punjab was the Singhs' land. They struck fear into the heart of their enemy. And Sangatji, now there is a Shaheed Ganj near Taran Taran Sahib, remembering this great act of bravery and courage. We should do darshan of these asthans, otherwise who will be the Bota Singh and Garja Singh of today? If we don't share these Sakhiyan with our next generations, then we would have failed our great ancestors. When Sakhi leaves our homes, recognize that Sikhi will also leave. Please forgive me for my mistakes. Lekha katena shuti hai, khin khin pulden har, baksan har, baksla, nanak par utar, Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.
Please like, comment, subscribe and share this video to spread the message of Sikhi. Make your daswan safala and donate so we can create more content like this. The link is in the description below.